Hello, everyone. Oh, we have a great conversation for you guys today. And I purposely did it at this time of the year so that you could feel reignited, inspired, and just kind of like get your mojo back if you're feeling a little bit of that slump where we kind of have that energy dip this time of the year. Because do not, like, I'm just so big on this time of the year. Do not throw the fucking towel in. Don't do it. We still have so much time to be able to manifest. And I myself, when I pull my shit together this time of the year, I have manifested crazy things this time of the year in a short period of time. I feel like there's something in the air of whether it's just like this action energy, whether it's the crunch time energy, whether it's the fire energy. I don't know what it is, the holidays, but there is something magical about this time of the year that I feel like just supercharges our manifestation. So lots of goodness for you guys in today's episode. So we have Jordan Larole, Tim Shawl on the podcast today, and we are talking all about magnetism, manifestation. She shares her story with religious trauma that she moved through and kind of like redoing her life, if you will, and having to reinvent herself in her mid 20s. She has a really inspiring story for those of you that feel like you just kind of went down the path that you were told to go down. And then you realize this is not actually in alignment for me. For those of you that are feeling any kind of fear about taking that leap of faith, this episode, I really hope just inspires you to fucking go for it, because there is nothing quite like taking that leap of faith. And inside the thing that you're afraid of, that is where your quantum leap is. So I'm not going to talk too much before we jump into it, but just know this podcast episode is full of nuggets. I was on Jordan's podcast a couple months ago, and we're going to air the episode on A Feminine as Fuck in a few weeks' time. So you can either go to hers to listen or you'll have it in a few weeks' time. And that episode was fire. We talked about manifestation, reticular activating systems, like, is it a sign or is it a reticular activating system? We talked about feminine energy and trauma, how all of that obviously is interwoven into your manifestation. So you can also go to her episode, her podcast, and listen to the episode that I did with her. But otherwise, sit back, relax, and let's dive in. All right, everyone. So today, Jordan is on the podcast, and she actually had me as a guest a few weeks ago, or maybe I guess at this point, it'll be like a few months ago, on her podcast. And that episode was like channeled divine goodness. If you haven't gone and listened to it, you definitely need to, because we were talking about like the difference between signs and reticular activating system in this like kind of part of it. And we were just going off, and I feel like we got the codes. Like we nailed the difference between signs and reticular activating system. And it was so intuitive and just like, it was fantastic. So definitely go check out her episode. So to begin with, Jordan, just give us a little bit of a background of kind of how you fell into manifestation. And also, if you can then share, once you've given us a bit of a background, what your diehard manifestation go-to like tips, tricks, things are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. It's so great to be chatting with you again. I loved our conversation a few months back. Yeah, you just like connect and vibe with some people, when you're having these
Yes.
conversations online, you can tell, and it just feels so good. And we definitely were channeling. Uh, I was just like, we were both like, whoa, so much coming
We
through.
seriously were. Like, what came through, I listened back to it and I was just like, that was fucking wisdom. Like right there, I like cut that chunk. I was like, this is so good.
Yeah, yeah. You just like know when stuff is like being channeled through you. It's like not you. It's like you're getting it to be giving to other people, and it so felt that way.
So how did you fall into manifestation?
Yeah, so I fell into manifestation. Oh my God, my life has been quite the rocky journey. So to give a little bit of a background for anybody listening, I grew up in an extreme religious group. I call it a cult because it basically, they wanted to keep you separate from everybody else, because you might then start thinking or living like other people. It was very much our way is the only way, and everybody else is going to hell. And like, if you don't live this way, things will be bad, and don't even associate with anybody else. We need to rescue all of them. Very disempowering towards women. A lot of just, we couldn't be leaders. I was told I'd be submitting to a man my entire life, like obeying him. I would always be under a man's authority. I got married very young. at 24, and I'd never kissed anybody else. I didn't have sex till my wedding night. Kind of went in blindly, like he loves God, that's all that matters. And it ended up being abusive in several ways. It was sexually abusive, very controlling, and just very disempowering, as was the kind of just culture towards women in that group. And I finally, through I was a classical pianist, stopped doing that when my blog started taking off. I started blogging just as an escape because it was something that really lit me up when the rest of my life I was really not happy. And that got me into New York a lot. I started to realize, like, oh shit, like a lot of this is really fucked up. And I immediately, after about 6 months after my divorce, got into a relationship that was a trauma bond. And we definitely, kind of going back to our signs, conversation, I was in that, like, I needed that relationship for a lot of healing work that needed to be done, but it was definitely a trauma bond. It ended up traumatizing me in other ways and ended up being damaging in other ways, but it was very healing in some ways. We just had very similar trauma. And the first time we broke up, I finally I think I just woke up. Like, my third eye just opened. I was coming online consciously, and I started meditating, and I knew that I wanted to go to California. Something in me was just pulled to California. And we visited San Diego and LA together, decided we wanted to move to San Diego. Relationship fell apart. I ended up ending it because, like, he just wasn't showing up whatsoever, wasn't even in the relationship or doing anything. And I was like, so you can't really be in a relationship. And he was like, I guess not. And I was like, well, then I guess we need to, like, be done. And I was a mess. I was so upset. And I was like, fuck it. I'm moving to San Diego by myself. I can do this. And I had lived alone for maybe 2 months ever. I was, married up until the end of 2019. He moved out when COVID hit. So I was alone for about 2 months. And then one of my really good friends at the time moved in for about 4 months, 5 months. And then my ex-boyfriend and I, who I trauma bonded with, we moved in together. So I'd never been on my own. I wasn't allowed to. I wasn't allowed to move out of the house until I was married. And so moving out on my own, let alone going across the country to a city where I did not know anybody. I had met a PR girl once, like, we had grabbed coffee. Like, that was it. I had people that I'd met once or twice, like 3 people like that. But otherwise, I knew no one. And I packed up me and my cat and was like, I'm doing this. My family was like, what are you doing? You're crazy. This is a really bad idea. You should just come home. And I was like, no, like, something in me was like, you have to go. And, like, you have to go. And that was, like, the point in my life. I had started healing and trauma healing after a lot of abuse and struggling with my mental health. I finally discovered manifestation. And I'd finally discovered, like, I can actually make choices for myself. But that was the point I discovered manifestation. I was at the airport, and I'd kind of been playing around with these concepts of, like, I can make my own life. I'm in charge here. And when I saw the steps of manifestation listed out, I was like, oh, yeah, like, I really can do this on myself. And it just resonated with me so deeply, being the creator of my life, because I was finally starting to take responsibility. I was waiting my entire life for God or a man or a miracle to save me. I was just, like, waiting. And I remember waiting as a little girl, like, all those Disney movies. Like, I just had this idea in my head that, like, once I met the one, I would just be so happy and my life would be a fairy tale, and, like, everything would make sense and I would just feel so good. Like, that was, like, going to save me, like, in my physical reality. And then I also was, like, in this religion. It was like, God, you were only, like, worthy because of God, and, like, God was going to save you from your sins. But I had a severe eating disorder, and I was severely depressed. I had severe anxiety. I had ADHD. I didn't know at the time, but, like, my functioning was so different, and I was always, like, getting in trouble or getting yelled at, or, like, I wasn't showing up the way I was supposed to, quote unquote, because I was just different and just wired different, and I also had severe struggles. And so I just kept thinking, like, well, I just haven't, like, got my relationship with God right. Once that gets right, like, I'm going to feel good, and I'm like, everything's going to be great. And so, like, I kept always waiting for something external to make everything better. And when I finally, like, learned about mental health and trauma and all of that in, like, 2020, after COVID hit, which I'm so grateful that I was sat on my ass so hard that it, like, made me start to die. I had no choice but to, like, finally look at, like, okay, I'm really
Yeah.
not okay. I was
Mm.
using alcohol. I was severely anxious. And I finally looked at stuff, and I started to see, like, I started to help myself heal and heal myself. And so then I guess I was just ready at that point to really receive manifestation and receive, like, no, like, every single thing that you want, you're capable of getting, and you're capable of healing yourself, and you're capable of creating your own happiness. And I think that moment, like things started to change because I started to fully take responsibility for myself in my life and realize that if I wanted something and I wanted to feel better and be happy and change things, like I needed to do that. And that's why I loved
Yeah.
manifestation, because it helped me step into my power and take responsibility for myself in my life.
Oh my God. There's so much in there that I want to just like go into because I feel like there is so much that you can offer my audience. One thing that I don't talk a lot about, but I actually deal with a lot in terms of my clients is religious trauma. I think that it's something that it's not spoken about a lot because it's like you will then, people are still a little bit afraid that they're going to then get shamed by
Mhm.
the religious group for like talking about the trauma that they had. And it's not to say that for some people, that same religion, wasn't really supportive for them, but we have to honor that like everybody has their own experience. So can you share with the audience, some of your religious trauma that you had to move through that maybe you didn't even identify as trauma in the beginning until like it was really smacking you in the face? Because often we don't even know we're like living in a trauma cycle until we're like so deep in it. And it would be great for some people to like identify that obviously earlier, but they often need to hear it from somebody else. So what was some of the religious trauma that you had to heal from, Jordan?
This is so no, I don't want to synchronistic because I literally
Yep.
just worked through something this weekend.
Mm.
Like it's probably going to be a shock to many, and then also like not be a shock at all to those who are used to extreme religious groups or have religious trauma. I didn't put together in my head the fact that I was physically abused and beaten until this weekend, 34 and a half years old. I was spanked to the point of bruising. Sometimes skin was broken, like screaming, heard my brother go through it. And because it was spanking and the Bible said, bear the rod, spoil the child.
Mm.
And like you're supposed to, that was what was supposed to be done. My brain didn't process. And this is the thing about trauma that can be so hard. You don't even realize, like, it's almost like gaslighting yourself maybe because you're like, well, no, it wasn't that bad, like this was, everybody else was doing this, and like the church said that this is right, but like no, I was fucking beaten. And like no wonder I
Mm.
couldn't I couldn't touch people, I couldn't have people touch me, god, until my late 20s. And I people thought I was just cold, standoffish. I thought things were wrong with myself. And I think that's the thing that is so hard about trauma is until you're educated on, well, mental health struggles as well as trauma, like I thought things were wrong with me and I was a shitty person and I just had problems and wasn't normal until I educated myself on what the symptoms are and how things present in your everyday reality. And like struggling to be affectionate or receive affection is a symptom of physical trauma. So like
Yeah.
it's just, this stuff can be so debilitating and you don't even know until you know. But that was definitely a big one for me. It was
Well, I mean, it's easier to blame yourself than it is to blame other people, right?
Mhm.
Because we are in control of ourselves. So it's kind of like this weird thing, which is why often, even when it comes to like really unhealthy relationships and abusive relationships, it's like women will blame themselves. Even men will do it. They'll blame themselves like, oh, well, maybe I didn't say it wrong. I guess I, used a bad tone. I guess I should have like read the room and not said it to him because he was stressed at that point in time. Like it feels like it's easier to blame us because if we blame somebody else, well, then the power is still outside of us, right? Because we can't control the other person. So that's why we always are like beating ourselves up, blaming ourselves. And also like if it's normalized, right? Which it sounds like it was for you. If it's normalized when, that's your environment growing up. And even if something's normalized through your teenage years or adult years, you then don't see it as abnormal. Like you don't connect the dots that actually like that behavior from that person was really unhealthy and you really went through that thing. Was there any other religious trauma that you had to heal from, Jordan?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. I think another thing that stands out was, first of all, owning that I had a right to make choices for myself and to be a powerful woman who like was in control of her life, but also sexual trauma. I
Mm.
received so much grief when I moved in with my ex-boyfriend, because we weren't married, and I had so many meltdowns having sex with him because there was so much shame around having sex outside of marriage. And it's so sad to me and so disempowering for women because like our pleasure is, it's so important for us to tap into our pleasure and to enjoy that as women. And like it's our right. to have
Mhm.
pleasure. It's our right to have sex and to enjoy that and to receive that. And so that took me years to remove shame surrounding sex. And I still have to like do mental work sometimes when I
Mm.
like even talking about sex or sexuality or being sensual, just because like more so publicly now than privately.
Mhm.
But it's still like there's just this discomfort and awkwardness sometimes around sex when it's like we were literally made to procreate. Like we
Right.
were meant to have this.
Right.
It's like a gift, but it's so shamed if it's not done the way that you're supposed to do it in a religious group.
Right. Yeah. I'm so sorry that you had to go through all of that, but thank you for sharing that with us because I know that so many women and men can just relate to that, of that feeling of not having a choice. Like it's that lack of freedom, right? Where you're kind of in this prison cell that you don't want to be in. And, obviously for some people, it's not a prison cell, but for some people, it really is a prison cell that they want to get out of. And that's like extremely mentally challenging. And obviously that then filters into other areas of their life. So when it comes to the move to San Diego, a lot
Mhm.
of people are very afraid to like make big moves like that, whether it's moving across the country, moving across the world, just like doing something that makes no fucking logical sense. I know it was a while ago, but do you remember what was going through your mind and kind of what sensations you were experiencing in your body that were really pulling you towards that? Because obviously that was a really smart choice that you actually made because it broke you out of your shell and it gave you so much by taking that big leap of faith. But those big leaps of faith, like I fucking know, they are extremely challenging to do sometimes in the moment. And we have to listen to like that one part of us that's screaming for us to do the thing that makes literally no sense.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It was so this was actually another area I was healing from religious trauma in. I part the religion I grew up in, you were wrong. Basically, like you were just made wrong. And I was trained to be scared of myself and my desires. And now I know my desires are my North Star. Like when I like the
Mm,
deep desires, not the like I'm triggered and I'm going to go drink a bottle of wine or eat a whole chocolate cake because like I need to numb. That's not a desire. That's like an escape tactic.
yeah.
But like the deep desires that we have, they're what we're meant to do. They're our higher self guiding us. And I, through meditation, was starting to be able to hear that inner voice and start to listen. And especially just the evidence I had gotten back from the last like 2 years of me actually following my heart and choosing me and my desires, even though I was scared to death and I was receiving so much pushback from, family. And I ended up cutting out most people in that community, at least temporarily, because I needed that space during that time and couldn't have those voices in my life. But I was like finally seeing the feedback in my life that me doing what I wanted to do and me listening to myself and choosing what I felt was right for me was helping me so much. So I was starting to pivot and starting to listen to that voice and listen to that more. And so that while that was such a scary decision, I had evidence from the last 2 years when I did that, like things got better in my life. And I felt better and I was stepping more into my power. So I was kind of like, okay, I really am feeling pulled to do this and called to do this. And I wanted to do it. It was just, I wanted to. And I started to respect when I felt like I wanted to do something and know that that meant that I should probably do it. And I at the time, I think was like convincing, talk about signs. I was seeing like when I was meditating, I was seeing like, I thought they were giant succulents. Do you know the agave plants?
Yes.
I thought they were giant succulents. I didn't know what they were, but I just visited to San Diego the one time and was like, I was seeing them in
Yeah.
meditations in like purple and green, I think, which when I looked up those colors, whatever I read at the time, it was like it meant like change and growth and like things like that. So I was like, I think I'm supposed to do this. So it's kind of like my higher self, I guess, was kind of like current me, what it needed to hear to like believe that I was supposed to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it was just kind of a learning that and kind of testing out what would happen if I started listening to what I wanted and following that. And also
Mm,
listening to, for me now, this is a huge thing that helps me when I'm deciding if I should do something or not. So this is a great tip for like inspired action. When you're feeling called to do something, does it feel expansive or does it feel constrictive? Do you feel
mm,
like you're dying inside a little bit, or do you feel lit up and excited about the potential and the possibility? And that excited me. That move excited me so much. The idea of it, the idea of doing my own thing, being in a completely new place, being somewhere warm. I think intuitively my body knew like blue and green and water and plants and nature are so healing. And I had
Healing.
like
Yeah.
30 years of trauma, 31 years of trauma at that point, and my body knew like you need to take some time and heal and be in an environment that's just softer. Because New York, I was
Right.
in Brooklyn at the time, and like New York is rough on you.
Yeah, I know. And I feel like anyone living there now, whenever I go back, I'm like, oh my God, New York has gotten worse. Like, I just feel like it's rougher and rough. Maybe it's like my nervous system also has gotten like calmer and calmer, but it is rough now. I feel like it used to be better because the shopping was better and now the shopping is bad too. So I'm like, there's no escape.
It's a lot to live there for sure.
That quote that you just said, I'm like, that is just, everyone needs to just take that in. If your desires or my desires, however you want to phrase it, that is my North Star. Like that is such a beautiful thing that you've shared. How do you, because for a lot of people, they'll go, okay, that's great, but I will have this thing that I want to do. It feels expansive, but it also feels so scary. Like I also then have the fear come through of all of that. So what are your tips of like moving through that fear when the fear is also like so attached to the expansion?
Yeah. So personally, and this is where emotional availability work with yourself comes in. It's so important and such a big part of my belief systems. Like, so a lot of me and what I teach on manifestation and magnetism really comes down to your relationship with you. I think the
Mm,
most like powerful thing you can do to make yourself more magnetic is to get really stable and secure within yourself. And so a tool that I use that I find is really helpful for being emotionally available to myself with that fear while also helping regulate my nervous system and retrain my nervous system to feel safe with what I want. I just actually put out a little mini course on this. It's EFT
mm,
tapping. I've
mm.
learned how to create EFT tappings for myself that are specifically focused on exactly what I'm struggling with. So I will use it to just like get out everything that's coming up for me. And just the process of getting that out, and then like my nervous system ends up getting calmed down from the getting it out, but then also from the tapping because you tap on your meridian points. And I
Yeah.
personally find it really just helps calm me down, get me out of that high beta spiraling thinking and into a more like alpha state where I can actually be more open to other thoughts that are usually feeling better to me. And then I actually put those thoughts in. I tell like come back to the truth because the truth is like I'm so incredibly capable. And I have gotten myself through even the times that I've had a bad idea where things didn't go great. I've gotten myself through it and I actually learned really valuable lessons from it. And I'm grateful for it. And the point, another truth that I really believe in, it's not the point of us and our journey is not to avoid mistakes or pain. Ideally, obviously, we want a life that's like we're making good decisions and not in catastrophes or causing them for ourselves all the time. But like, it's the point is not to just be living in a way to avoid that stuff. It's to live expansively. And sometimes we have to learn things the hard way. And so I know I built that trust with myself. I can handle anything that's thrown at me. I've handled worse. I've always come out the other side and I've always come out better. And like also overall, I am going in the direction of everything I want. My life has gotten better and better. I have gotten more stable and happy and purpose driven. Like everything is working out. So even the times when I've done something and it maybe did have some negative impacts, I've been fine. And also, like, even the times like things have had negative impacts, a lot of them have had really positive ones as well.
Mm.
And so, just like all of those things, and like also knowing that oftentimes the things we want lie on the other side of our comfort zone. And so it's like
Right.
I kind of just talk myself through. It's self parenting almost. Like
Yeah.
what's my inner child need to hear, or what do I need to hear from my higher self? And I try to give that to myself. And I feel like it just helps lock it in or on a deeper level when it's paired with the tapping. And it's one of my favorite tools. But yeah, it's really coming back to your own capability, your own strength,
Yeah.
and also the things you know. Like, what have you learned so far?
Friends, really quick, if you haven't joined Be a Lover, Not a Mother, you can join this alongside your man if you want to do it together because he will learn so much as a result of also watching/listening to this program. And inside this program, you will truly get a lifetime Bible for understanding men and communicating with them in a way that gets your needs and wants met. And yes, of course, he'll be leading and devouring you. That's literally the whole vibe of the program. So what you get inside of this program is the exact things to say in different situations so that you're working with his brain, not against it. You'll be getting 8 hours of modules for you to be able to binge straight away tonight. You get access to them as soon as you join. We're not like drip feeding anything. So you literally can be like pushed against the wall by him tomorrow. You will, of course, get access to future modules that I add. And if you don't know, I often do update my programs. And you will, of course, get space to ask your specific questions to me and to get those specific answers because we do have a Telegram group as well. So there is that kind of like bespokeness to the program, if you will, because you've got that space to ask me about your questions. If you are really wanting to feel like you are no longer emasculating him, that he is actually having the space for him to step up and lead you, then I highly recommend that you join Be a Lover, Not a Mother, so that you can actually make that your reality. And whilst I'm here, if you haven't already left a review for the podcast, I would be so grateful if you did. They are truly the thing that helps the podcast get boosted in the algorithm. And I know that you love the podcast so much, and I know that you want to be able to pass that forward. Like, you found me. You're probably glad that you found me. Otherwise, you will be listening to this episode. And so when you do this and you just take 30 seconds out of your day, you're helping other women and men to also be able to find me. If you're on Spotify, you'll have to just flick over to Apple Podcasts and leave that written review. And don't forget to send a screenshot of it to media@monicayateshealth.com. And we will send you a little gift that you cannot get anywhere else on the website. You can't buy it anywhere. We will send you a little gift in return. And this gift you want over the holiday period. Like, the meditation that you get is bringing your energy back to yourself. If you find that you leak your energy, that you people please, that you feel like you are a victim of the energy vampire situation over the holiday period, then you want the meditation that I give you as the gift for leaving a review. I love that. I mean, like amen to everything you said. I even know for me that now when I'm afraid of doing something or I'm trying to talk myself out of it, which is just my ego, right? I'm like, oh, I have to go and do this thing. Like, the thing that I'm afraid to do, I now just drive myself into that thing, because in the things that we are afraid of, there is always expansion. And to your point of like, even if something quote unquote negative happens from you making that choice, you are perceiving it as negative. But for all you know, we kind of talked about this, I think,
True.
when I came onto your episode, but it's like sometimes that quote unquote negative experience has to happen for the next thing to come through. Like, I know for me in my life, it's like, on the topic of dating, it's like I've dated the bad guy, but in dating the bad guy, I got so much from that. And that allowed me to then meet, the man that I just married. Or like, even for example, one of my best friends now, I met her because of this guy that's like a whole fucking story. Long story short, if I didn't have that, if I didn't have that really shitty experience, like, one, I would have never actually really experienced what it is like to be in a relationship or like even a friendship with somebody that is such a smooth talker that they're actually like narcissistic essentially. And though on the more positive side, I would never have met my best friend because I only met her. We are the complete opposite. Like, we met in New York, but she works in biotech. Like, she told me her job like 300 times. Still don't know what it is because I can't remember it. We are complete opposite people. We are in completely opposite crowds. Like, we never would have crossed paths if it wasn't for that one guy. It's interesting how like we tell ourselves like we always want these positive experiences, but actually I've had such amazing things come out of negative experiences, or negative experiences have given me such incredible redirection that I am so grateful for. So now I remind myself and I remind my ego that even if it like doesn't work out essentially the way we want it to work out, right? But it actually worked out perfectly. Like, that's how it was meant to work out. Even if it wasn't how we wanted it to be, we have gotten so much from that experience that is then making the rest of our life and the next moments even better. And to your point, through that fear is expansion. Like, that's the only way that you get out of your comfort zone. And if you want a more expansive life, if you want the next level of your life, then you need to stop doing the same things. Like, you got to stop being comfortable because you're only then going to get the same shit all the time.
100%. I mean, our brain's job is to keep us safe. And
Right.
I think we know when the fear is like us holding ourselves back from expansion, or like, oh yeah, you're probably going to die if you do this. Like, we know the difference, especially the more you get
Yes.
to know yourself. Like, obviously, like, fear is there for a reason, but a lot of the time it ends up holding us back. And 100%, like, most of the things that I've done in my life that I was afraid of, I'm trying to even think of ones I'm not grateful for. Cause like, exactly like you say, all of the things that like quote unquote didn't turn out well or were
Yeah.
bad, they actually were exactly what I needed. And like, I feel
Amen.
like we actually screw ourselves over a little bit with manifestation and with just like enjoying our life by placing this like it's like it's putting perfectionism on life and
Hmm.
manifestation, because I've done it to myself where I'm like, oh, I'm struggling with my mental health, or oh, something's not going right, or oh, this isn't coming through the way I thought it was going to, so I think it's not working, or I think that something's wrong. And I'm actually just like, no, like life is never going to be perfect and things aren't going to feel good 100% of the time. That doesn't mean they're not working. And that doesn't mean that things aren't going well, and that you're not manifesting and that your manifestation's not going to come through. Like I had this happen actually, like, oh my God, eclipse season. This was an intense one for me, but I like the universe had a situation happen where I had to get so, and it's been doing this, but I needed to get so broken down to the
Mm.
point where I finally was open to asking for help. Part of my trauma made me this like independent woman who like, I'm going to white knuckle my way through. I can do anything and I do it all myself. And it has been, my relationship has been helping me so much, but like I finally was like, I need help. And like, not the help where I know I'm going to give back in an equal way,
Yeah.
like where I because like I do that where I'm like, well, I'm receiving now, I'm receiving help,
Yeah.
and then but I'm gonna like give back in this way. That's no, it's like receiving, letting somebody actually help you, and all you're giving back is thank you and gratitude. That's the kind of help that I needed to learn how to receive. And so like I was kicking and screaming and having a little fit with the universe because like, why is this happening? And then like there was just a couple of things that the universe was like, honey, I love you. If you don't fix these things or shift in these areas, like you're not ready for the things that you've been asking for that I am bringing your way. And so
Mm.
it's really about training yourself to have a perspective that's like, I guess, like a growth perspective almost towards life and manifestation instead of this like sparkly, perfect view of it.
Well, it's like we're thinking that we have to have our life looking like a perfect social media grid or Pinterest board, because if it's not, then we're like not succeeding, we're failing, we're not manifesting as well as we could, blah, 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 rather than realizing that like manifestation is also just the human experience, right? And we put so much pressure on ourselves for these, like, right to your point, like the sparkly manifestations, instead of realizing that like some of the gray manifestations or like the less sexy ones are also really important for the bigger manifestation. I mean, I've even thought about before how, I have to sometimes call myself out of, am I like, I actually don't want to force this manifestation or go too hard on it, because what if it's not the right time? And
Mhm.
then I've like forced this to happen. And now I've like kind of fucked myself because actually I wasn't technically ready for it or whatever it is. And it's really finding, and that's like, you as a person are the only one that can feel this balance in you and this kind of like the equilibrium. But it's this, not even balance, I guess, dance between the receivership of manifestation, but also being really active in it, right? And it's like, you're not trying to push, like it's not like you are breaking down doors to get what you want in this kind of aggressive way. You do have to show up. You do have to put the work in. You do have to take action to it, like the law of action, but you also don't want to force something if it's not the right time. Like you've got to also listen to your self and your nervous system, which is kind of then coming back into like a little bit of following the signs, but also really trusting your intuition.
I love that you brought nervous system into that because I think that's a really practical way to tell if you're forcing or you're in flow. If living in a way that's like dysregulating you, then it's probably forcing.
On the note, actually, then of manifestation, so what do you feel like most people trip themselves up with when it comes to manifesting?
I think they don't have a trauma informed perspective of manifestation or a mental health, nervous system regulation, or nervous system informed like understanding of it. I think a lot of people miss exactly what you said. Like a lot of times it's not as simple as taking the inspired action. Like a lot of times there's stuff that like, and this is a lot of what I refer to as self-sabotage. It's like you know what you need to do or want to do, and you just are having a hard time doing it. A lot of people, I feel like their past trauma or their mental health challenges or just their humanness gets in the way of showing up in a way that's a match for what they want or taking the inspired action to call in what they want. And so I think for me, understanding, educating yourself and understanding how to like work with yourself and your nervous system, it
Mm,
again comes back to your relationship with yourself. Like when you get good with you, it's so easy to be good with the universe and other people and what you want to call into your life. But
I
I've
love
seen
that.
it in myself and I've seen it in clients. Like when they, I mean, a great here, I'll use myself as an example. I have had this new relationship come in May, and it's been amazing and so healthy. But I found myself struggling to receive in certain ways because of my nervous system or limiting beliefs,
Mm.
just other things where it's like I called the thing in that I want, but like I'm sabotaging it because of stuff that I haven't dealt with, or different things like healing or mindset, or just like also stupid shit from like Disney, like these ideas we have about what relationships should look like. So for me,
Fucking Disney, honestly.
it really ruins so many of us when it comes to like love.
I love that. Okay, so then what are your diehard like manifestation go-tos? Like the things that you're constantly like the things that you're doing, the things that like the tools that you're using, the things that you're reminding yourself of. What would your diehard things be?
Honestly, so I was focused on manifestation for a while. I have a 7-step process and it's absolutely amazing. But like honestly, when you understand manifestation, it's really all about embodiment. And so
Mm,
that's why I shifted to magnetism, because I'm so much more focused now on who I'm being than like following this like list of steps. And it's helpful. I'll go back to them sometimes if I'm like, okay, well, like why isn't this coming in? Like it's helpful for checking myself, but honestly, I am so much more focused on just feeling good within myself. And so that really looks a lot like anytime I have a trigger come up, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to work on it. Taking care of myself mentally, physically, emotionally. A lot of it really is just coming down to like maintaining a really healthy, connected relationship with myself, checking in, tuning in, making sure I'm good. Because when I'm in flow with me, things just flow easily. I think it and it comes in the right way at the right time. And so it's so much more of a way of being for me now that's rooted in this secure relationship with myself than it is like focusing on these things, this because they can almost become I can almost become, with my history of being very religious, like legalistic with the steps of manifestation,
mm.
and like get too focused on what I'm doing when it's really about who am I being,
Being.
how am I
Oh
showing
my
up for.
God. Like, amen. I've said this to people before, and like, I've even had to catch this for myself of when I'm like getting too hyper fixated on like these kinds of steps or what I should be doing for manifestation. And that then creates this stress around what I'm manifesting, which literally fucking repels it
Mhm.
versus focusing on how I'm living, the energy that I'm being in, like who I actually am as a person and what I'm believing. And it's funny how sometimes like the more that we put action towards something, we can actually sometimes repel it. Like I know for me, I'm that kind of person where like I'm just like an all or nothing, like very balls to the wall kind of situation and I can be very impatient. I actually now classify myself as patient compared to what I used to be, but I'm technically still
Same.
very
Yeah.
impatient. And so I have to be careful, like for me personally, making sure that I don't get too rigid with my manifestation practice because manifestation is so fluid, like energy. So like I've got to stay in the flow and of what I'm feeling and what I'm being called to in a
Mhm.
given moment rather than like following this step that I read in a book. Because even when like I'll sometimes, pick up books about manifestation just because I'm curious. I'm like, oh, there's a new book out. Let's see what it says. And it's almost so like black and white where I'm like, to our whole conversation and what we spoke about, when I was on your show as well, if you are in such a fucked up place, like these steps aren't going to work. Or maybe they'll work a few times and then you're going to hit a brick wall and you're going to think like something's wrong with you. The universe doesn't love you anymore. Like you're not being punished, whatever, whatever. It's like that foundation of you, your magnetism, your embodiment, all of that. Like once that is worked on, then manifestation is like your words become your spells. Like you just say something and boom, it happens. Like you don't have to do a lot
Mhm.
because you're in alignment and the universe naturally wants to reward you.
Oh my God, 100%. Exactly. Exactly. And just think so many people miss that. They're so focused on how do I get what I want? And
Right.
the quickest way to get what you want is to get really good with you. And that's, healing, learning to be emotionally available to yourself. Cognitive rewiring is a huge thing that kind of ties
Mm,
into what we were talking about with perspective. Like that steps 2 and 3 of my manifestation process. So it's like getting clear on like what you're blocked on or what your limiting beliefs are, and then replacing them with better. Like that also is a huge foundation, because so much of like what we block ourselves with in manifestation and in life is just coming from shitty thoughts and shitty beliefs, a lot of which though
mm,
come from trauma that you've experienced that locked in these beliefs about how you see yourself, how you see the world, how you see your place in the world, what you deserve and what you think you can get. So a lot of, I think, manifestation comes down to is a lot of choosing what you are going to think and believe and choosing your perspective on things. You know, everything that's happening
Yeah.
is happening for you. Like, I come back to that even when everything inside of me is like fucking pissed off and like, I hate this and I'm so annoyed. But like, I'll let myself have my little fix. I want to feel my feelings and I want to get it out. And sometimes there's something, some nugget to be found in there of like something
Mhm.
that like I need to listen to. But I then always come back to, this is happening for me. How can I try to see how it's happening for me and believe that and then act in it? And you know what? Like,
Yeah.
even if you think this is all like woo or fake, like, I'm sorry, but it's so practical. And just like, if you do that from a very practical perspective, shit's like hitting the fan in your life, and you choose to try to see how it's happening, how, like, what good is happening from it, what you're learning from it, and focus on that and live in like this belief that it's happening for you, you're going to have so much of a better experience. Like, and you're going to create so much better. It's just practical. It affects our beliefs, affects like how we show up, and that affects what we're creating in our reality. So even from this like very practical perspective, it's huge. But I just also like, that's just a core tenet of manifestation, like choosing what you think and believe. And it's active. It's a daily practice for me. Like, I actively am really thinking about what I'm thinking and aware of what I'm thinking, and
Yeah.
choosing differently when I know beliefs aren't going to serve me. And then when it's linked to trauma, like going back and facing that and healing
Yeah.
that.
Friends, I am so excited to share with you that I have another one of my juicy, like, knicker dropping. Knickers is underwear, by the way. Anyone that doesn't know. Like, wet knickers, panty dropping masterclasses. You guys, if you haven't been to one of my masterclasses before, you can actually head to the masterclass vault and you can watch one of the previous ones. I have started doing these a few years ago and I am just like fucking loving them. And we haven't done one for a while. So I'm like, we're due for one. So we are doing one, and the title of it is Becoming Her in 2025. If you have been to my previous masterclass that I've done twice before called Becoming Her, it is going to be different. It's an upgraded version of Becoming Her for a reason that you will understand soon, or maybe you already understand it. And we're going to be going into the 7 pillars that are essential for you to become her in 2025 and to create the life of your dreams, not just the life of your dreams next year, but every year following. So what we are going to be covering in the masterclass is what it means to actually quote unquote become her, how feminine leadership is paramount for easy manifestation, the 7 pillars, like I just said before, that you need to be paying attention to so that you're not missing any key pieces of actually becoming her and manifesting your best year yet. We're going to be doing a little life audit so that you can figure out where you're holding yourself back and not take that into 2025. I'm going to be going through the snowball effect. I'm going to break down what embodied manifestation is and how it will drastically change the way that you magnetize your dream life. We're going to have a live Q&A, and there's going to be so much more because, like, I mean, what else would we expect? And it is all happening very shortly. So if you don't have your name down on the list, you absolutely need to, so you do not miss out. This will be a limited time masterclass, and I am fucking jazzed about it. This will not replace the New Year's Eve bundle, by the way, which is coming as well. The New Year's Eve bundle will be opening mid to end of November. The date of that will be on the website page. So if you want to join the New Year's Eve bundle, if you want to get on the wait list to make sure that you don't miss out on the early bird discount, then we'll put the link for the New Year's Eve bundle below, and you can absolutely do that, because for the New Year's Eve bundle as well, the New Year's Eve bundle is being recorded live this year, and I am updating everything in what was in like the curriculum the last 2 years. So for those of you that came and did the last 2 years or one of the years of the New Year's Eve bundle, you might want to rejoin this year, because I mean, shit's just getting better and fucking better. So anyway, let's jump back into the episode. I will see you guys in this masterclass. You just like went on fire, and I just like loved everything that you said. Okay, I want to ask you something that you're going to then ask the audience. This just came through. What is a powerful question that you would like to ask the audience for them to then reflect and think about?
Ooh, oh, this is a good question. I mean, this is such a simple exercise. What in your life would you love? Write that out. And then write out anything that comes up for you that isn't excitement for that. You know,
Mm.
what in you feels shitty when you think of the thing that you deeply desire? Because there is so much to be found there. Things
Oh,
you think about yourself, things about, you know, what you think is possible for you, how the world works.
oh my God, I love that. Even just one of the biggest things for me, some people will know this, is like from my audience, is back when I was like a hardcore, like, fuck men, girl boss, like, feminism rocks, like, men are like, they should be in the garbage, like, no one needs a man. Back when I was that, like, long time ago, I had this like very deep desire to be able to just let go, right? To be able to be in that kind of sub dom, like healthy and of course in a healthy way, but that sub dom energy. Like I fucking loved a man. Like I really did. But I felt so much shame about that because it's like, oh, a woman, like a independent, powerful woman, like she shouldn't need a man. She shouldn't want that. Like she should be leading the relationship. Like she should be in the driver's seat, etc. And so to your point, it's very often that in those deep desires where we have shame, like that's also where our trauma is, right? And I had so much trauma around men and this like intense story about what it meant to be an independent woman. And if you shared any vulnerabilities, then you were like so effing weak and blah, blah, blah. I feel like that question that you asked everybody could extend past even just like, what do you want in your life in terms of manifestation and more, like material and that kind of thing. Also think about what you want in your relationships, in your business, in your bank account, like for your health, all of those things. And then, yeah, what shame, what fear, whatever comes up behind that deep desire though. So don't write the desire of like, I want a new handbag. Like that's boring. Like write something like that's deep where you almost wouldn't want someone to see that because you have stuff around that needs to be worked on.
1,000%. Yeah, there's so much
Mm,
information in those places where we feel shame or sadness or just tension within ourselves.
yeah.
And it's really funny that you bring that up because I've been having a lot of conversations surrounding feminism and feminine energy and like being in your divine feminine and like how those things all can actually go together. And just from kind of what my understanding is coming to be, I think a lot of us think that, and a lot of women think that because it was like feminism was about reclaiming power, uh, there's this confusion that being in our power means like we have to be like a man. But I think it's all about equity, not necessarily equality. Not that we aren't equal, but it's like, I don't want to do the same things that my boyfriend does in my relationship. Like,
Oh
I
my
don't
God.
want to be equal. I want to be equitable. And I want the way I show up being my loving, nurturing self to be how I give. And then the way he shows up taking care of me and like paying for dates and all that stuff. Like, I want that to be how he gives. And like, I don't want to give the same way he gives. And that doesn't mean that I'm not in my power. I think we can be in our power and have rights while having different dynamics
Well,
between
this is
us.
like my job and just wait for my fucking book because this is essentially what my book is about.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's a very needed conversation. So we're not even going to go down
Yeah.
that one because that is a whole other podcast in and of itself that we will not get into right now. Anyway, Jordan, what last thing do you want to leave the audience with?
I think with just following from that, uh, something that I've been learning over the past 4.5 years, but I've deeply learned from my current relationship is that my needs and desires are so valid and there's nothing to be ashamed of in them. And yes, that's the areas to look in, but like I want to leave people with that reminder like the
Mm,
things that you deeply desire, the things that you need and want, whether it's from a relationship, from the world, from life, from money, from whatever it might be, you have to honor them. And whenever I neglect those things, I start to get depressed and I start to get really
mm,
sad. I lose my motivation. I lose just my drive for things because those are part of who you are. They're part of what you're meant to have. And I just think so, especially us as women, like you're saying, to keep that connection, because a lot of us are so afraid of losing a man or a relationship. We're afraid of being abandoned. We settle and we push those things down and tell ourselves that we don't need them. And oh, well, and like you're saying, we blame ourselves and like, no, 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 no. Own your needs, own your desires. You deserve that. And I promise you, yes, stuff might fall away, but it's all the stuff where you were settling and it felt shitty anyway. And you're going to then make space for and actually be able to call in the things that are going to give you everything you wanted and more. And it's going to feel
yeah.
so good. I feel so good right now, especially in my relationship. And it took me really breaking that within myself because that was me making a million and one excuses for why they weren't doing this or how well I was needy or clingy or
Yeah.
emotional or all this stuff. And now, like, I am so honored for being exactly who I am and I get my needs met and it feels so good. And like, I had shame around that, but you deserve to have your needs met. and it's your
Oh,
birthright.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jordan, for everything that you shared with us today and really for sharing your story and being vulnerable and just giving. I feel like this episode is going to be so inspiring for so many people,
Mhm.
with just kind of hearing what you have gone through and what you've overcome, no matter how scary it felt. So thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. And can you just tell people where they can find you?
Yes. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on. I really
Of
love our
course.
conversations. I hope we get to have one in person someday. And yes, you guys can find me at Jordan Laurel on all social platforms. I'm mainly on Instagram. It's JordanLaurelle. And then my podcast is the Magnetic Muse podcast. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. You guys can check those out down below in the description, and we will see you next week for another amazing episode. Oh my goodness, guys, that conversation was so juicy. I loved Jordan's story about everything she shared in regards to her religious trauma. I really hope that inspired some of you, but also helped some of you to feel seen because religious trauma isn't something that's spoken about a lot, but it is a very common thing that people deal with. I mean, there's a whole mini trauma call on mini trauma. Sorry, there's a whole mini trauma call on religious trauma inside of my signature program, Queen Alchemy. So it is there for a reason. And there are multiple women every single round that really need that and find so much support of that. But beyond just the religious trauma, I mean, the conversation around magnetism and what manifestation means for her, I just hope that this was an episode that ignited you, especially at this time of the year when we're kind of like chasing our tail and trying to get these last pieces all pulled together so we can manifest as much as we can before the end of the year. So go and give Jordan a follow. And for those of you that are waiting for the New Year's Eve bundle to come back, the New Year's Eve bundle will be coming back this year and I am recording it live. It is going to be upgraded. We have fresh content because there is big things that have happened this year. And of course, I'm just going to be adding more in there to give you guys so that you can really finish this year with a bang and start next year with an even bigger bang. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on the early bird pricing for that, make sure you're on the wait list so that you know. We'll put the link below for that. And I mean, there are like some very exciting things coming. I've kind of been teasing it on my stories. So just make sure that you're staying clued in because trust me when I say you do not want to miss out on what I'm about to drop for you all. Okay. I'll see you guys in the next episode.